At 6:04 a.m. in the Baltic Sea, the surface picture was clean. A U.S. Udaloy-class destroyer was on a northeast heading at 14 knots, conducting a routine freedom of navigation transit through international waters approximately 40 nautical miles west of the Russian exclave of Kaliningrad. The CIC watch officer had logged the standard contacts: Swedish merchant traffic to the northwest, a Danish ferry on its morning schedule to the east, a pair of fishing returns stationary near the Danish coast. Nothing anomalous. Nothing requiring reporting to the captain. At 6:04 a.m., a contact appeared from the northeast at 18 knots on a direct intercept course. The CIC watch officer ran the vector projection once before speaking. The contact was closing. The bearing was direct. The speed was purposeful. He pressed the intercom. Bridge, CIC. Single surface contact, bearing 035, range 9 nautical miles, speed 18 knots. Track history consistent with naval vessel. Contact is on a direct intercept course. CPA estimate 200 yards. Time to CPA 31 minutes. The officer of the deck repeated the numbers silently before reaching for the intercom to the captain's sea cabin. 200 yards, not 2,000, not 1,200. 200 yards. In the Baltic Sea at 6:04 in the morning, that number was not a CPA estimate. It was a statement of intent. At 6:07 a.m., the captain stepped onto the bridge. He walked to the radar display, studied the incoming contact's track for 15 seconds, confirmed the bearing rate. The contact had not altered since detection. It was holding its intercept geometry with the steadiness of a vessel whose crew had been told exactly where to go and had no reason to deviate. He looked at the CPA projection. He turned to the officer of the deck. I have the con. The Baltic is not the Pacific. The Baltic is a confined, shallow inland sea, average depth 55 meters, constrained on all sides by coastlines that are, in the case of Kaliningrad to the east, aggressively relevant. The Russian Federation maintained the Kaliningrad exclave as a forward-deployed naval force housing the Baltic Fleet headquarters, its submarine base, and the full infrastructure of a power projection platform. The contact closing at 18 knots from the northeast had come from those waters. The contact was an Udaloy-class destroyer. Classification came from the CIC's acoustic library and was confirmed at 6:09 a.m. visually. The contact's silhouette at 7 nautical miles was unmistakable. The Udaloy was a Soviet-era design that had aged into something more intimidating with use rather than less. 7,900 tons, 163 meters. Its profile from the front was heavy and direct, not the clean lines of a modern warship, but the purposeful mass of a vessel designed when subtlety was not a naval virtue. It carried exposed weapons on deck. The weapons were visible at distance. That visibility was not incidental. Russia's Baltic Fleet doctrine held that foreign warships transiting waters Russia considered strategically sensitive were subject to what Russian naval documentation called close-escort procedures. No international maritime law recognized this doctrine. It was unilateral, unsupported by UNCLOS, and consistently applied anyway. Close escort meant matching course and speed. Close escort meant maintaining a parallel position that made the foreign warship aware of its proximity at all times. Close escort meant closing to a distance that made the commanding officer choose, maintain course, and accept a Russian warship as a permanent close neighbor, or alter course and concede that Russian doctrine had practical effect in international waters. The Udaloy had been running this play for 31 years. Its crew was practiced. CPA updated 180 yards. Time to CPA 24 minutes. At 6:14 a.m., the officer of the deck hailed on Channel 16. Russian naval vessel bearing 035. This is a United States warship conducting a lawful transit of international waters. You are on a course that presents risk of collision under COLREGS. Alter course immediately to establish safe passing distance. Channel 16 returned a response. Not silence, a response. The Russian captain spoke in English without hesitation. United States warship, this is a vessel of the Russian Federation conducting authorized operations in the Baltic Sea. We are aware of your position. Maintain current course and speed. We will maintain our intended track. A pause. Good morning. Good morning. The pleasantry was not casual. It was the specific acknowledgement that this encounter had a procedure and a professional conclusion, and that the professional conducting it on the Russian side found it entirely routine. The Udaloy was not hiding its intention. Its intention was its intention. Close parallel escort, conducted openly, in daylight, in international waters, with full expectation that it would be logged alongside the 27 similar incidents documented in the past 4 years. The captain did not respond on Channel 16. He held course at 14 knots. CPA updated 160 yards. Time to CPA 19 minutes. The Baltic morning was gray and flat. Sea state force 2, swells under 30 centimeters, a surface that looked more like brushed steel than water. The early light from the east came across at an angle, eliminating shadow and making every contact visible with unusual clarity. The Udaloy at 7 nautical miles was still a silhouette. At 3 nautical miles, it would be a presence. At 200 yards, it would fill the bridge windows. The Kaliningrad coastline was not visible from the bridge, but its relevance was. Every officer who understood where they were understood that they were operating within the strategic shadow of a Russian military installation the Russian Federation considered essential. The Udaloy was not a rogue element. It was an instrument of policy, operating under orders that originated above its captain's rank. Whatever happened in the next 28 minutes had been authorized before the Udaloy left port. CPA updated 140 yards. Time to CPA 15 minutes. At 6:19 a.m., the first friction event announced itself through the navigation team. The Baltic Sea was a gyrocompass environment demanding continuous attention. Shallow water, high traffic density, and complex tidal patterns near the Kaliningrad approaches created conditions where gyrocompass precession, the gradual drift of the compass, rose relative to true north under sustained operational load, could introduce heading errors of 1 to 2 degrees. At normal transit speeds, a 2-degree error was a minor inconvenience. At 140 yards from a 7,900-ton Russian destroyer, matching every course adjustment, a 2-degree error was the difference between a controlled parallel track and a geometry the International Maritime Inquiry Board would spend months reconstructing. The navigation officer reported the drift at 6:19 a.m. Gyrocompass showing 1.3-degree precession to port. Recommend manual verification against GPS and magnetic backup. The captain authorized the verification, introducing a 12-second window where precise heading confirmation depended on the backup compass. 12 seconds. 11 meters at 14 knots. Enough to matter at 140 yards. The verification was completed. The heading confirmed. The navigation officer remained at the chart table for the next 47 minutes, providing continuous heading monitoring. His coffee went cold without being touched. CPA updated 120 yards. Time to CPA 11 minutes. At 6:22 a.m., 2 new contacts appeared from the northeast. Airborne low altitude closing at 580 knots. Bridge CIC. 2 airborne contacts bearing 028, altitude 200 feet, speed 580 knots. Track consistent with Su-24 fencer configuration. Contacts on a direct approach heading, 580 knots at 200 feet. The Su-24 fencer was the aircraft most associated with documented low-altitude passes against U.S. surface vessels in the Baltic and Black Seas. Multiple prior incidents, all logged, all protested through formal diplomatic channels, none producing behavioral change. At 200 feet and 580 knots, it produced a sound event that arrived before the aircraft was visible and departed before the mind processed what had happened. The contacts were 19 nautical miles out. At 580 knots, that was 118 seconds. The geometry had added a vertical dimension. While the bridge crew's primary attention was on the Udaloy closing from the northeast, 2 aircraft were approaching from the same bearing at a speed bringing them overhead in under 2 minutes. The classic pattern, surface contact driving attention to the horizon while air contact exploited divided focus, was being executed by professionals who had used it before CPA updated 110 yards. Time to CPA 9 minutes. Udaloy range 5.2 nautical miles. The captain had not moved from the center window. He had already considered the aircraft. He had already decided how to respond. He had filed the airborne contacts in the category of known variables and returned his attention to the variable he was not willing to share with anything else. The aircraft were manageable. The Udaloy was the event. At 6:24 a.m., the first Su-24 pass occurred. The aircraft came in from the northeast at 150 feet, lower than the CYC initially projected, and crossed the destroyer's bow at approximately 300 meters separation. The sound of two AL-21 F-3 turbojet engines at full military power at 150 feet above the water was not processed normally. It was a physical event, a pressure change, a concussive blow to the air, a sensation felt in the sternum before it was heard as sound. The second fencer crossed 400 meters astern, 30 seconds behind the first. In the CIC, one analyst's pen rolled off the console edge and fell to the deck. He picked it up without looking away from his display. The ventilation fan seemed louder in the silence after the aircraft passed. The coffee cup on the chart table had shifted 2 centimeters toward the edge. The navigation officer moved it back without comment. No one on the bridge spoke for 4 seconds after the second aircraft cleared the stern. Then the helmsman reported, "Course 045, speed 14 knots. Helm steady." He had not altered the heading. He reported the standing course to confirm it, not because confirmation was required, but because in the 4 seconds after 2 aircraft passed at 150 feet, the sound of a course held steady was the most useful thing anyone on the bridge could say. CPA updated 90 yards. Time to CPA 6 minutes. Udaloy range 3.1 nautical miles. At 90 yards on the radar, the Udaloy was a presence. At 3.1 nautical miles, its profile had resolved into a specific ship, the distinctive Udaloy hull, the exposed weapons mounts, the wide beam creating the visual impression of more horizontal space than 163 meters would suggest. The morning light caught its hull at an angle, throwing a shadow across the water between the two ships. The shadow moved. The Udaloy was still closing. The destroyer was a $2.1 billion platform, maintaining a heading that had not deviated since 6:04 a.m. Its crew of 287 people was at high alert stations, managing a surface contact and an air contact simultaneously, with Kaliningrad on the eastern horizon and a Russian destroyer 3 nautical miles away. The cost of this, the fuel, the wear on systems held at maneuvering readiness, the sleep disrupted for off-watch crew who could hear the general quarters posture through the hull, was real and accumulating. But the cost of the alternative was not a fuel line item. It was a precedent. Precedents in the Baltic Sea in 2024 were more expensive than any fuel calculation. At 6:27 a.m., the Seahawk received authorization to launch. The helicopter would position between the two ships at 50 feet altitude, recording the parallel track with its camera system. Its presence in the gap inserted a calculation beyond hull geometry. Any course change had a consequence visible to a $43 million airframe hovering between the two ships and recording every second of it. Simultaneously, the fire control radar entered active tracking mode on the Udaloy. The tracking solution was current and confirmed. The Udaloy's electronic warfare suite was sophisticated. Baltic fleet destroyers were not operating with outdated threat detection equipment. Every relevant radar warning receiver on the Udaloy was active and receiving. The Udaloy's captain was aware, to a precision of seconds, that he had entered a targeting solution. Fire control radar was a language. At 6:27 a.m. in the Baltic, it said one thing: "We are tracking you." The choice about whether to continue closing is now yours with full information. The CIWS completed its power sequence and entered passive thermal tracking mode. The barrel oriented toward the Udaloy. It moved as the Udaloy moved. The movement of the CIWS barrel was visible from the Russian bridge. CPA updated 75 yards. Time to CPA 4 minutes. Udaloy range 2.4 nautical miles. The second friction event arrived at 6:28 a.m. The satellite communication system was transmitting the encounter log update to 6th Fleet Headquarters in Naples. At 6:28 a.m., The primary satellite channel was experiencing transmission lag due to an ionospheric disturbance over the North Atlantic, consistent with elevated solar activity flagged in the 0600 forecast. The channel was available but producing transmission windows of 8 to 12 seconds, interrupted by gaps of 15 to 20 seconds. The encounter log transmitted in fragments. 6th Fleet had the data, in pieces with gaps, while the CPA was dropping toward 75 yards, and 2 Su-24 aircraft continued their raceway pattern overhead. From Naples, the picture was assembling slowly. From the bridge, it was happening at once. The communications officer managed the fragmentary transmission without interrupting the tactical picture. 6th Fleet confirmed receipt at 6:30 a.m. 6 minutes. The tactical situation had continued correctly in that window. At 6:30 a.m., the Udaloy reached its intended parallel track position, not collision course. The Udaloy's captain had never intended a collision. He had intended a parallel track, and he established it at 6:30 a.m. 7,900 tons of Baltic Fleet hardware, matching speed exactly at 14 knots on a parallel heading at a distance of 73 yards. 73 yards. Half a football field. Through the port bridge windows, the Udaloy was not a contact in the distance. It was adjacent. Its bridge was visible with crew members in it, and those crew members were watching the U.S. bridge crew with the focused, professional attention of people engaged in a competitive exercise they intended to complete correctly. On the Udaloy's forward deck, the exposed weapons mounts, quad-tube torpedo launchers, surface-to-air missile canisters were simply present at 73 yards. The Seahawk had positioned itself in the gap between the two ships at 50 feet. The rotor wash created a visible disturbance on the water surface between the hulls, a circular pressure zone, white against the gray Baltic morning, tracking steadily between two ships maintaining their parallel positions with the precision of ships that had very good helmsmen and very clear orders. The diesel exhaust from the Udaloy's gas turbines reached the U.S. destroyer's bridge. A faint mechanical smell, specific and unmistakable, the smell of the other ship's engines at 73 yards. The two Su-24 aircraft made their second pass at 6:31 a.m., slightly higher, 200 feet, crossing at wider separation. The concussion was reduced. The captain noted the aircraft and did not look away from the Udaloy. The Udaloy was at 73 yards. The distance had not changed. It was holding its parallel track with precision. The CPA was no longer a projection. It was an established fact. Every minute at 73 yards was a minute in which the U.S. ship accepted a Russian destroyer as its neighbor. Minutes accumulate. At 4 hours of parallel escort, the incident would produce formal diplomatic protest from the U.S. Embassy in Moscow. At 4 hours, it would produce a NATO consultation. At 4 hours, it would produce the specific strategic outcome the Russian Federation had been pursuing in Baltic waters for a decade. Documented erosion of freedom of navigation as an uncontested norm. At 6:34 a.m., the captain spoke. Not to the Udaloy, to the officer of the deck. Activate emission control protocol. Reduce radar emissions to minimum safe navigation profile. Emission control, EMCON, was the deliberate reduction of electromagnetic output to deny an adversary the intelligence those emissions provided. The Udaloy, at 73 yards, was collecting from the U.S. destroyer with every second it remained in position. Every radar pulse, every communications emission, every electronic signature was being recorded and stored by the Udaloy's intelligence systems. The close-escort doctrine was not purely psychological. It was a collection operation. Going to EMCON denied the collection. The U.S. ship became electronically silent, not invisible at 73 yards, but silent. The Udaloy's intelligence hull dropped from comprehensive emissions profile to hull present, nothing else. The operational purpose of close escort beyond psychological pressure had been removed. The Russian captain now had to decide what he was still accomplishing at 73 yards with a ship in EMCON, a Seahawk between them with a running camera, a fire control radar tracking him, and zero response from the U.S. bridge to 3 aircraft passes. At 6:37 a.m., the third Su-24 pass occurred at 250 feet, higher than the previous 2, crossing at wider separation. The pattern was consistent with a crew whose passes were producing no visible response and were widening accordingly. The captain stood at the center window. He had not eaten since coming on watch. He had taken one additional sip of coffee at 6:29 a.m. and set the cup down without finishing it. His eyes continued their rotation, Udaloy bearing on the port side display, radar picture on the center console, the physical space through the port windows where the Udaloy occupied the near middle distance. He was counting something that wasn't on any display. He was measuring minutes since MCON activation against a threshold he had established in his own calculation. He said nothing. He was waiting. At 6:41 a.m., the tel appeared. Not a course change, not a speed change, a radar emission change. The Udaloy's fire control radar, its MR-184 targeting system, had been in standby mode since the beginning of the encounter. Standby communicated capability without designation. At 6:41 a.m., the U.S. destroyer's electronic support measures detected the Udaloy's fire control radar transition from standby to off. Not to active, to off. Fire control radar off was an administrative action, the action of a bridge team making an internal assessment that the next phase of this encounter would not require fire control readiness. It was the action of a captain who had examined the numbers. MCON denying intelligence collection, fire control radar tracking him for 11 minutes, the Seahawk between the ships, zero response to 3 aircraft passes. The return on continued escort was declining faster than he was willing to accept. The captain said nothing. He was waiting for the confirmation 60 to 90 seconds away. At 6:43 a.m., the confirmation arrived. The Udaloy reduced speed by 1.5 knots, from 14 to 12.5. In a parallel escort, maintaining station required exactly matching the escorted vessel's speed. Reducing by 1.5 knots meant falling behind the U.S. destroyer's position, not dramatically, but steadily, at approximately 140 meters per minute. The falling behind was not an accident. It was a withdrawal, conducted in the only way available to a ship that had spent 41 minutes establishing that it would do exactly what it wanted in the Baltic Sea. Slowly, frameable as a navigational adjustment without any radio announcement. Contact reducing speed. Now tracking at 12.5 knots. Udaloy falling behind our position. Bearing drift to port. Then the visual. Through the port bridge windows, the Udaloy's bow angle, aligned precisely with the U.S. heading for 41 minutes, began to open. Not quickly. The way a door opens when someone has released the handle but not yet pushed it. The bow angle widened. The gap between the Udaloy's bow and the U.S. destroyer's midship section, which had been 0 for 41 minutes, began to appear. 640 yards. Then 700 yards. The Udaloy was still visible, still a large, heavy shape in the port windows. But the shape was no longer adjacent. It was becoming something that could be described with the word astern rather than alongside. At 6:46 a.m., the 4th Su-24 pass did not occur. Both aircraft banked northeast and accelerated away. The raceway had ended. The Udaloy continued to fall back. At 6:48 a.m., it was 1,200 yards astern. At 6:50 a.m., it initiated a course change northeast toward Kaliningrad, conducted without haste and without transmission on Channel 16. The same professionalism that characterized its arrival characterized its departure. The Seahawk recovered at 6:51 a.m. Fire control radar to standby. CIWS secured. MCON stood down when the Udaloy opened to 3 nautical miles. No one spoke on the bridge for what felt like a long time. In the CIC, the watch team continued their work with the specific quality of attention that existed in the minutes after sustained high alert. The transition was invisible from the outside and entirely legible from the inside. The chair that the CIC watch officer had not sat in for 47 minutes felt, when he finally lowered himself into it, exactly like what it was. The officer of the deck's shoulders dropped approximately 1 centimeter. He had not known they had been elevated. He rolled them back once, quietly, and they settled into a position he recognized as normal. He adjusted his collar. The collar had not needed adjusting. The helmsman released his breath in a long, controlled exhale, the kind that happens when a body recognizes it has been maintaining a specific readiness and has just received permission to stop. He had held course 045 for 47 minutes with the steadiness of someone for whom 47 minutes of sustained precision was what sea duty produced. The course had stayed. It would stay. The captain remained at the center window for 3 more minutes. He watched the Udaloy's bearing drift northeast until the shape in the port windows had contracted from something occupying visual attention to something simply a contact among contacts. Then he turned. Secure from EMCON. Resume normal emissions. Encounter report per 6th Fleet Protocol. Seahawk maintenance inspection on landing, 21 minutes in salt spray. Secure CIWS. He walked to the chart table. Confirmed position. Noted the fuel state. The sustained high RPM maneuvering posture had consumed approximately 340 gallons above standard transit profile. He picked up the coffee cup. Cold. He drank the remaining half without apparent objection and set it down. Good watch. The record assembled here speaks in the language the ocean keeps. One Russian Federation naval vessel, an Udaloy-class destroyer, 7,900 tons, departed Kaliningrad and established a close parallel escort position alongside a U.S. destroyer conducting a lawful freedom of navigation transit in international waters of the Baltic Sea at 6:04 a.m. 2 Su-24 Fencer aircraft conducted coordinated low-altitude passes during the standoff. Duration of parallel escort at 73 yards, 41 minutes. Minimum confirmed passing distance between hulls, 73 yards. Bridge-to-bridge communications from the Udaloy, 1 initial statement. Responses from the U.S. vessel, 0. Su-24 passes conducted, 3 completed, 1 aborted. Minimum altitude recorded, 150 feet. U.S. response to each pass, no course alteration, no speed change, no radio communication. Fire control radar activated on the Udaloy, yes. Duration of active tracking, 11 minutes. Weapons authorized, no. Weapons released, no. MCON protocol activated to deny intelligence collection, yes. Duration, 17 minutes. Seahawk positioned in inner ship gap, yes. Duration, 21 minutes. Fuel consumed above standard transit profile, 340 gallons. Course alterations by U.S. destroyer, 0. Speed reductions under escort pressure, 0. Degrees yielded from course 0450. The Baltic Sea is not wide. There are no open ocean distances available to make separation easy. The Udaloy came alongside in the morning with 7,900 tons and 2 aircraft and 41 minutes of intent. It found a destroyer that had already decided how the encounter ended before the contact first appeared on radar. Close escort works when the escorted ship moves. This ship did not move. The Baltic remembered it.